the Nike Invincible Run 3. I'm 50 plus miles deep into this shoe, and we're going to find out through our deep dive if this is a shoe worth keeping. Let's talk about it. So before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, like video, subscribe, watching the content. Thanks so much, love you guys a lot. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Strava for a lot of sorts of life updates and things like that. And yeah, links are in the description below. Without further ado, let's begin. Specs for the shoe up here. We've discussed them last time. I discussed the shoe in my first impression scenario. And to be fair, I kind of rushed through that just on the honeymoon phase approach of what I thought was the shoe, where it's like, hey, look at this brick house of a shoe, check out what's going on with it, let's just take it for a spin and see what happens. And you know, in your first gradual runs you feel a certain way with it, you get that spring and etc. And now that we've kind of calmed down with the shoe and I've tested it through 3 various conditions, you know, through the rain, through dry outdoor conditions, and now the treadmill, I can give you guys a little bit more of an honest reaction and thought process to the shoe overall, in addition to responding to some of the comments I saw last week's first impressions video, which brought up some really interesting points that I didn't think about until my 3rd run in the shoe, because I initially did a review with my first run, right? And then I said, okay, this is what I thought, this is what I see, cool. But then as I read the comments, I realized there were certain other things going on here that could use some addressing. So we'll just kind of kick it off again. As per tradition on this channel, what the outsoles of the shoes look like at 50 plus miles, which again, it is only 50 plus, but if there's anything significant we should talk about, then I guess we'll talk about it. But there we go, that's kind of what's going on. And from the view, I mean, obviously it's got a little bit of like treadmill, I guess, muck on it. It's the little like white crystals and whatnot. That's a thing I've seen before that just kind of sits there if other people have like salt and stuff on their shoes. I don't see any particular wear and tear areas of massive interest, only probably again in the right foot, more on like the outside of the rubber here. And that's just another key piece we're going to discuss about the width of the shoe overall. Our little inlay here, this Nike piece, again, that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to follow as well, because it doesn't have any grip. It just has the Nike logo insignia on it. And if we're going to lose grip at some point and it starts in this area, then that's kind of like a bad manufacturing point. So, okay, let's talk about what I originally thought about the shoe last week, and let's just kind of either backtrack or explore some more rabbit holes from there. So last week, I was thinking this is kind of like a middleman shoe between the Vomero 16, which would be like your distance, slower day shoe, but also a shoe that could be similar in terms of the Zoom Fly 5, where you have a little bit more speed and a little bit of stiffness. I thought the shoe sat right in between both of those particular pairs that Nike has released. Now, obviously the difference there is that there isn't a carbon plate, so it's going to be less of the Zoom Fly 5 and more of like this Vomero 16 kind of family. But it also has its niche as being like a total ZoomX foam shoe with, you know, the rubber outsole being your protection for the foam and hoping for the longevity of it. Now, a couple of things I didn't talk about last week which are worth addressing is overall the lip of the heel of the shoe, or the, you know, the area surrounding the gusseted tongue, in addition to our pull tab and what's going on here, because there's some interesting stuff here which is kind of an oversight, I think, on Nike's end. What I was reading in the comments was that people were complaining about heel slippage in this shoe. And now I didn't notice any heel slippage at first because I was like 2 runs deep into it. I had a good pair of socks. I wasn't complaining about it much, nor did I notice it, right? And maybe this is also because I'm baselining this to, I would say, the New Balance 1080 version 11, which had like massive heel slippage, right? So whatever I was experiencing in this shoe didn't feel significant enough for me to notice until I put on like the Zoom Fly 5 and tried running in that again, where like you have a total lockdown for a shoe that's extraordinarily stiff, whereas here, you're in the shoe, there is a minor heel slippage going on where your heel does lift off the ground in this shoe, and it kind of repositions your foot if you're not properly tied down, which becomes a whole nother can of worms in its own way, right? So heel slippage, it's not bad, but it is present in this shoe, something to think about, again, because there isn't a whole lot of protection or a whole lot of, like, I guess, cushioning on the inside of the shoe here that can help you hold it down, which is okay. When we get into our comparison video with the Vomero 16, I'll discuss more where the Vomero 16 goes right and where this particular shoe is going wrong in terms of heel lockdown. That's one piece. Number two, the lockdown of the shoe overall. So, the shoe is kind of wide, which is fine. If you're a little bit more of a wide foot runner, not a big deal. If you have like a significantly more narrow foot, I would think at this point in time, you've realized you should be probably wearing a woman's style shoe if you're a man, just because the toe box tends to be a little bit thinner, or not thinner, but it tends to be less wide, and your foot may be able to fit better. I know this is a thing that people do, like it is what it is. That's just how the shoe is marketed and how, you know, the biometrics of certain individuals are. And then if you're a woman with wider feet, you might buy a men's size shoe. That's just how it works, right? So anyways, point there is that during my treadmill run, I was experiencing a little bit of heel slippage, and as a result, the way my feet were positioned in the foam and in the inner sock here slightly shifted. And you know that feeling when like your toes kind of start molding into the foam, that like perma-lock kind of thing where it's just like starts sliding in like a glove, and then you're shifted just a little bit, and now your toes are like sitting on the gap pieces of the foam where your toes were in between. You know what I'm talking about. Like, it's the only way I can describe it is like, this is your toe box, right? Or this is your shoe, the insole of the shoe. Your feet are like perfectly positioned with it, and then you shift it just a little bit, and now your toes are like here inside the foam areas. That's the only way I can put it. Anyways, I digress. The point is that was happening a little bit in one of my shoes, and it started getting really annoying because then I had to like shift it in the middle of my run back, which is like, okay, you make the micro shift, not a big deal. It's not something that's kind of crazy, but it's something I haven't had an issue with since I believe it was the Pegasus 39 when I was running in it. So again, something interesting to note there as well, that the heel slippage can result in some stuff going forward there. Now let's talk about some of the more outsole, I would say, bottom pieces going on here. Two things in particular. Number one, let's talk about the ZoomX foam. So I don't hate the ZoomX foam at all. In fact, I love it. As a daily trainer piece, it just adds a lot more, I guess, like spring to your run and some more nice rebound, because that's what the ZoomX is for. It's going to give you that high speed, high rebound effect, but not like a high lifespan as a result, because the foam will just quickly, I guess, the half-life of it tends to diminish quicker than something like the EVA or the React in this case. But point here is that the manufacturing of it overall feels kind of rushed and not in particularly a good quality sense. Like, it's hard to describe maybe from here, but maybe I could show you guys. It looks like it was like, mold pressed, and then they just like chopped it with a machine that had like a bad cutting blade. And as a result, we get these like sharp points on the edge of the ZoomX in these particular areas of the shoe. And now, it's not like a big deal overall, but as you will probably get into this next piece, you'll understand why I have some gripes with it. Yeah, and it just basically follows the entire outline of the ZoomX foam in this particular area. It just seems like it was like cheaply manufactured that way. There wasn't too much detail that was put in to basically cutting out the foam mold, and yeah, it's very strange to see in this kind of case. Kind of makes it seem really cheap, despite the color scheme being like freaking awesome, right? We get this marble column with a pop of red kind of deal on this shoe, so yeah, it's cool. Now, this is where this foam issue becomes an issue, is because when you look at this shoe, right? Do you see how wide your forefoot area of the shoe is, and including this heel area? It's kind of a brick of a shoe in this instance, right? Because if you're running and you have maybe like, I don't know, weak hips and stronger hamstrings that as a result cause your knees to slightly cave in or cause your feet to not run straight in a way, what's going to happen is you're going to get that typical scuff mark on your calf, okay? It's like on the inside of your calf that happens when you get a shoe, when you're like your right shoe grazes your left calf inside. That's just basically what's happening, right? Now, I experienced that like in very minor spurts when I'm like running on the treadmill, because, you know, after you do it, when you're running in like a straight line for like a long period of time, you're going to have like some stride mistakes. It's like, it's not a big deal, right? But I feel it in a really sharp way because of the way this foam is also put together. And it's just something I noticed that like it could be something that can also be avoided if the shoe wasn't so wide in this toe box area to begin with. And maybe, again, this is just the design of the Invincible overall, and maybe in the Invincible one it was the same way. I don't 100% remember. I had that shoe in 21, and I had it for like 2 months maximum. And what happened there was that, I don't know, I don't remember it being as wide necessarily, but in this case, the forefoot area is so wide that you are getting some kind of clipping on your calf muscles if you don't have really good or conscious stride of you clipping the inside of your calves. Just something to note there as well. And I guess the last points we'll talk about is the stride overall in the Invincible. And I'll see what we said in the comments here below, because I saw somebody posted. I just want to make sure we read it for sure. Somebody said, the heel feels so wide that any unstable ground has me landing at an angle. Now, okay. So that could be something also to address with the fact that this is just ZoomX overall, right? And there's probably a couple of like other factors to consider with that type of issue. I guess what the commenter is saying is that when they're running, the shoe isn't landing directly flat. They're having this like supination that occurs, because they might be unstable. They might have the same issue that I have where you have like a slight supination from running in high stack shoes. Or 2, he could be onto something, and because this ZoomX is so, I guess, like squishy and unstable, that you could, just that little minor issue of like your shoe kind of caving in a certain side will cause an exaggeration of that, whether it's you pronating or supinating, or if you're pushing more in the heel, you're going to suck in more in the heel. The forefoot, it should respond appropriately, but again, you might have over-exaggerated effects because the foam is just so not, I guess, yeah, squishy is the word I'm using. It's just you're going to have a huge rebound from it, right? You're not going to have like this stiff piece of like carbon fiber plate that helps you manage or navigate the load within the shoe. You just have just the foam and like the rubber and the ground. So there is something to be said there. I don't see too much of an issue of the shoe supinating on me at this period of time. However, I guess the wear of the shoe would say otherwise, that I am slightly supinating as is. But this has always been an issue, particularly in my right foot at this period of time in running. So maybe running on flat roads, this could be something that you'll have to be extra conscious of. Maybe whether you're running fast or slower, just be aware of that being a thing. Was there anything else that was in there? Heel lockdown is lacking. I kind of agree with it. Again, I haven't run long enough to make the heel lockdown be a huge issue for me, but it is something I am looking at. And then runner's knot and everything, lots of circulation blockage if I tighten where it needs to be. Yeah, I see that being a thing too, that the circulation blockage is in fact a possibility when this is your only tight point on the shoe. It does just feel like a headache in your foot, and you have to stop sometimes and like readjust. I know if the shoe is too tight when I'm running and it feels like the archway of my shoe is like sore, because that's one of the first signs of like circulation kind of being an issue in my foot. It's like that archway is just not having a good time. Don't ask me why. It's not like plantar fasciitis. It's just a circulation thing that I've become more conscious of. And like when I loosen the shoe a little bit, then that issue goes away completely. Or if I like stop running and I give my foot time to get some circulation, that fixes itself as well. And I believe we had one more comment here that I saw here related to the shoe. Yeah, the shoe. Oh yeah, I'm gonna post this one in the video here somewhere. This is what I'm talking about. This is the comments I like to see on my videos, like just something nice and fun that is probably accurate. So as you can probably read it, you know, it's the shoe's like an obese Jamaican wearing Usain Bolt's world record clothes and spikes during the victory poses for money. So like, yeah, it is interesting because it's like, it's such a well-marketed shoe, but it's just built like, you know, not perfect, I guess. That's the way to put it. But like, again, it's a daily trainer with like the everyday speed aspect to it. And yeah, there were shoes that Nike had created that were like perfect for this, like the Pegasus Turbo 2 for a lot of people. For me, it was the Pegasus 37 before, you know, the whole late 2020 debacle with things. So there were perfect shoes that were created, and then this certain direction that Nike has chosen to go with some of the shoes have been awesome, but at the same time have caused some other, I guess, disadvantages that happen with their product. So maybe with the Invincible, there's just a lot of moving parts with it that make it still kind of a complex shoe, similar to the Invincible one as I remembered. So again, There's things that are good with the shoe, things that I'm still kind of iffy about, but overall I'm going to still run with it, try to put in about 100 miles. We'll see where we go with this in particular time, and maybe the issues that I've had early on with this shoe will subside, but it is kind of unlikely. But because I like you guys a lot, we're going to go 100 miles on this shoe and just see what happens with it. And plus, I like to have this nice like ZoomX daily trainers. I like to have a little bit of spring in my daily runs as well. So yeah, I don't think I've missed anything else at this point. This was just kind of the deeper dive of my first impressions video, but also 50 plus miles deep into it. So if you have any similar experiences or anything that I missed that you would like addressed in the next following video, just let me know in the comments below and we will probably address it. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.